what you play your back seven, beside Darius Slay, with no defensive linemen that were available. On the offensive line, you play two guys, but not three guys. At wide receiver, which, by the way, I agree with, they get reps for the young receivers, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, because, oh, by the way, you saw last night, they need them, and they need them badly. And they play to the end of the first half with all the mismatch of. So my larger point is you're supposed to be developing chemistry, not only on an individual basis. We always talk about with the quarterbacks and the receivers. You got to play together, Eric.
I got to work into the wee hours of the morning. Yours truly went to bed pretty dejected after last night's Eagles preseason game. We're here to talk about it with you for the next 2 hours. Mr. McMullen, what time did the head hit the pillow?
Oh boy, I wasn't expecting that. I gotta think. Three maybe.
Oh,
three-ish. Man. Certainly in that range.
Been there, done that. After 2, turn around, get up to Birds 365, and I give you props for being a gamer. I don't know how many Philadelphia Eagles I can say that about this morning, but I'll give those props to you. This is an old and overused phrase, but I'm going to use it because it's very fitting. Eagles lose 35-0, and the final score was not indicative to the actual closeness of the game. It was worse than that. It should have been worse than that. If the Patriots had somebody could kick it through the uprights, it would have been worse than that.
You're right.
Holy mackerel, Johnny Mac. What the hell happened last night?
What do we have? A 36-yard missed field goal, 2 missed extra points. Remember, they won for a 2-point conversion because the kicker couldn't make an extra point. So that's 6 points right there you tack on. You have any competency at the place kicking position. So, yeah, they got boat raced. And it is preseason, and I want to point that out. And obviously the starters a lot of the starters didn't play, and those that did play, very quick cameo appearance. So I kind of look at this more of a perspective of preparation and what the heck are you doing to prepare for September 12th against the Atlanta Falcons. That's what I'm concerned about, because I don't get the plan. I don't get what was going on. Now, Jalen Hurts aside, because obviously that's not the head coach's fault or anybody. You get sick, you got to go to the hospital. Jalen's a tough guy. I got to imagine it was pretty bad. It was a little bit strange because he was out there pregame. He was dancing around. Everybody saw him. He looked completely fine. And then we fast forward to the game, and Joe Flacco's under center. So, that's a big adjustment. Now, that said, that's a veteran quarterback who's been out there. That's not going to phase him, certainly in preseason, Joe Flacco. So I still look to more of the plan. And, oh, by the way, if Jalen Hurts was healthy, he was going to be out there for 2 series. That's it, for 2 series. And, he's not the starting quarterback, Jody. We won't admit that. Look, I've seen a lot of positive signs from Nick Sirianni. I think I've been pretty optimistic throughout the early process of camp, willing to give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to short practices, which, by the way, isn't even his decision. That's coming from Howie Roseman, the medical staff, the training staff. Now I'm starting to question, what the heck is the plan here? And I think the plan, and he keeps defaulting to, nobody knows what we're going to do as far as offensive, defensive scheme, and they don't want to show anything, and they're not showing anything in preseason. So, I mean, the Eagles are probably number one in the category of, let's get rid of these games. If coaches are going to be this just, we talk about tanking late in the season. If you're going to charge regular price for fans for these games, and coaches around this league are going to be this disdainful of this process, let's just get rid of these stinking things.
Let me jump in here. I heard everything you said, including at the end that the Eagles are not showing anything. Just no one can take anything of what the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be from our 2 preseason games so far. Don't you think the guy on the other sideline, who some would argue is the greatest coach of all time. If he's doing the same thing, oh my God, this might be the greatest football team ever. If the New England Patriots are keeping things under wraps and a boat race, to use your phrase, the Eagles the way that they did, how great are the Patriots going to be?
Yeah.
If it's all about don't show anything, don't let anybody know what you're doing, oh my God, the New England Patriots are going to be the greatest of all time. Cam Newton, the check down king, threw the ball pretty damn well last night. Mac Jones, rookie, wet behind the ears kid, wide open wide receivers delivering the football with zing on it. How come the Patriots were able to do that and the Eagles weren't?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. And we talked about, and I'm one of those, I thought the Eagles outplayed the Patriots in joint practices. And then all of a sudden the lights go on and the Eagles look like the worst team in the world and the Patriots look like the Tom Brady Patriots. I always go back to two coaches who have the two philosophies I always point to. Mark Levy in Buffalo would always say, didn't care a lick about preseason. And when the Bills were great with Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and all those guys and Bruce Smith, he would say he would use the preseason to find three guys at the back end of the roster that can help his team. That was it. That was the whole plan. And they barely ever won a preseason game through that whole run. If you go back and look. My first coach I ever covered is Dennis Green. He had the theory of winning as a habit. And, he didn't go out of his way. It's not like he was playing Randy Moss and Chris Carter any more than anybody else plays the starter. But if you're in the game, if you're dressed up, you try to win the game. Obviously Nick Sirianni is more of, I would think, the Marv Levy category. So both can work. And I get the thought process behind both. And I always tell Sixers process people mainly, there is always more than one way to do something. Always, always, always more than one way. So I'm not saying this can't succeed in the regular season. And that's why I look at the plan. That's my biggest concern. That's what I can't figure out for the life of me, the plan. Like if you're gonna sit your starters, sit your starters. If what you play your back seven beside Darius Slay with no defensive linemen that were available. On the offensive line, you play two guys, but not three guys. At wide receiver, which by the way I agree with, they get reps for the young receivers, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, because, oh, by the way, you saw last night, they need them, and they need them badly. And they play to the end of the first half with all the mismatch of – so my larger point is you're supposed to be developing chemistry, not only on an individual basis. We always talk about with the quarterbacks and the receivers. You got to play together. Eric Wilson – it's got to, it'd be nice if he could get his series or two with, Fletcher Cox if he's healthy and Brandon Graham if he's healthy, which they were. It'd be nice to see Jordan Mailata and Isaac Seumalo out there with Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, who, by the way, were ready to play. They were dressed, and they just changed their mind at the last minute because, Jalen Hurts isn't playing, so let's sit Lane and Brooks. Where is the structure? Where is the structure? That's what NFL coaches always talk about. Structure, discipline, have a plan. Not fly by the seat of your pants. Okay, you had some adversity. The starting quarterback got sick. Granted, all right, do a better job with it.
Let me ask you a question about, and this is what you and I discussed briefly before the show, and is a bigger concern for me than anything else. They sat a lot of their starters. You're right. A couple of starters did play a series. Miles Sanders played 4 snaps. Is that right? He got 2 carries and 4 snaps.
Yeah.
At least
by the way, Miles is not playing week 1. You're protecting him. He's out there week 2. It makes no sense. That's my problem.
Here's where my issue comes in, Johnny Mac. Nick Sirianni, since day one, in that ill-fated opening press conference, which he's gotten better at since by leaps and bounds, talked about competition, that he wants the guys not only to compete against the other teams, but in every single snap they take in practice. It's always a competition, It's always the charge to be better, to get better. You stack practices on top of games, on top of downs, and all the little catchphrases that he uses. But it all comes back to competition. He decided to not compete with how many guys? How many guys didn't even play for the Philadelphia Eagles? No, a couple were. Jalen Hurts is included in that. And he was off to the hospital getting his stomach looked at. But there were a whole bunch of guys that were healthy that did not play at all. How many guys did they not even dress for last night's game?
There were 20 total. Now, most of those were injured. So if you add in, I'm doing it real quick as we're speaking here. Darius Slay could have played. Obviously, he was back at practice. So remember, he got banged up at practice with that friendly fire thing, but then he was back. So he technically could have played. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson,
Fletcher
Brandon
Cox,
Brooks,
Hargrave.
No, Hargrave was hurt. Hargrave has an ankle injury. Fletcher Cox. So 6 guys. Josh Sweat, 7 guys were healthy and could have played. The rest of them were injured.
Barnett did Barnett suit up and play last night or no?
No, he's got a shoulder injury.
Okay.
He didn't play. So they didn't defensive line. They didn't have anybody. They didn't play. Graham and Cox and Sweat were healthy. Sweat and Javon Hargrave and Ryan Kerrigan were not. So that's your top 6 defensive linemen. They didn't play the 3 that could have played. So when you start talking about there was no pass rush, Milton Williams had a couple. That was it. They were. But really,
let me ask you a question about the hurt guys. Was Kayvon Wallace 100% healthy last night?
Well, that's a good question. He came back really quickly from the groin injury, called himself Wolverine. Then he got hurt with a groin, so he left the game. He was in the medical tent. So
some guys played who were hurt right up until yesterday, and they went out there and took a shot, while others who, if it were a regular season game, I'm guessing would have been able to play through the injuries they had. They said, no, we're not going to take a chance. We're not going to let them play.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. With veteran players who are even a little bit dinged up, like I don't have a problem with not playing them. That makes sense to me in the preseason. In the case of Kayvon Wallace, he's probably watching Marcus Epps playing better than him, and he's like, I got to get on the field quicker. That's probably, you probably criticize the training staff, the medical staff. They probably got to slow the kid down. And then he re-injures the groin. So there's a lot of layers to that. But, the guys like Hargrave and Barnett, yeah, you're probably right. I can't say with 100%. If it's a regular season game, they probably try to go, depending on – they're both listed as day-to-day, so it's not a week-to-week injury. But I don't have any problem with holding those guys up because they haven't been practicing.
Here's the thing I'm trying to get at, Johnny, and I apologize for interrupting, but we got to get a break because Derek Gunt's going to join us coming up here in just a couple of minutes early in today's show. Who's deciding who is and isn't playing? Is it more the medical staff than the coaching staff? Is it more the medical staff and Howie Roseman than the players and the coaching staff? Is Howie Roseman just drawing up a list before the game starts and handed it to the coach and go, these guys play these, and in parentheses is the number of plays I want them to play. Who's making this call? Is it Nick Sirianni? Is it Howie Roseman? Is it a combination of the coaching staff along with the general manager? Maybe there's other personnel people in Howie's office that are actually giving him advice as to how much to play and who to play. And they try to get Sirianni on the record about it afterwards. And he's become a pretty good coach. He's pretty damn evasive of that question pretty quickly. Your best guess, who's deciding? who played the question is 35-0 loss.
It's interesting because Nick got asked this during training camp, not last night. And that's the closest I've seen him yet go to being a little bit upset. I'm not going to say upset, Mr. Abulian, but I think it was Jeff McMullen who phrased it as, so you just listen to the medical and training staff. And he said, no. At the end of the day, I listen to their advice and it's my decision. Bottom line, if you're going to ask me what the truth is, no, the organizational, the short practices, the holding guys out, that's an organizational decision, and that's led by Howie Roseman. Is that good? Is that bad? You can make arguments of both ways. Like I said, I'm very honest about preseason football. I don't think it's meaningful for players like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks. So I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with the herky-jerky nature of this guy's out, this guy plays. You know, there are a couple teams that set out 35 and up to, I think 37 was the high water mark. 2 teams were over 35. I think they both got killed in preseason week 1. They're not even playing their high level reserves. So, like, I get that though. I get you're not playing anybody. Like, I get the consistency of it. I don't get throwing the back 7 out there, but not the front 4. I don't get throwing half of the offensive line out there, but not the other half. That is the part where I think the plan is. I don't know what adjective you want to use. Fragmented. I don't see where you gain chemistry with Jordan Mailata, say, and Isaac Seumalo without the rest of the offensive line out there. I don't see where the back 7 is helped by playing with second and third string defensive linemen. So sit them all. Sit them all.
Here's here's 2 narratives that I think need to be put aside. If not put to rest, at least put aside. The Eagles have good depth. Really? Their depth was out there on the field last night, and they got torched and shredded. So please stop with the Eagles have good depth. And the other one is, it's going to be really difficult to cut this roster down to 53. No, it's not. Give me a pen. I'll start scratching off names after last night's debacle. I think it's going to be pretty easy to cut this down to 53.
Well, I would say that of any NFL fan base, you don't have depth. You might think you do. You don't.
No, not even close. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Going to get a guest up early today. Derek Gunn's going to join us. He's got a charity golf affair he's got to get to. So he said, I'll hop on with the guys, but I got to get out relatively early. So we're going to get him up early, get him out early. Derek Gunn joins us next here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.